This is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is Friday. Thank you. November 4th. And I'm in Bixby, Oklahoma, interviewing Charley Johnson. Charley, you're Creek, Cherokee, and Choctaw, a member of the 1964 class at Shalako.
Yes.
You also served in the Army from 65 through 68 with the 134th Quartermaster Company in Vietnam and the 82nd Airborne.
Right.
We're going to talk about your Shalako School memories, your experiences in the service, and your present-day involvement with veterans and Shalako. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Tullahana, Oklahoma in 1945, December 15th. And I grew up in Hughes County at Calvin, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Up until the 8th grade, we lived there at Calvin. Up until the 6th grade, we lived out in the country. We lived on some land we owned, and then we moved to town when my younger brother started school. And after 6th grade, we moved into the city of Calvin.
Okay. What did your mother and father do for a living?
Well, they're both deceased now, but Dad was a retired section hand off the railroad, and Mom was a homemaker. So I think they've been gone probably pretty close. And Dad's been gone about 20 years now.
Mm-hmm. How about brothers and sisters?
I've got, well, there were six boys and 2 girls. Everybody's, I'm the second youngest, and my younger brother passed away about 6-7 years ago. He had Agent Orange from Vietnam, and we lost him back then.
Sorry.
But my other older brothers and sisters are retired, and they're still living. They're in their late 70s and the 80s, early 80s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're still kicking.
Kind of spread out.
Yeah.
So what, your Creek, Cherokee, and Choctaw, what side of the family, what tribal influence do you think was more dominant as you were
It was
growing
definitely
up?
the Creeks, because we, like I said, my dad was a full-blood Cherokee, and somehow, and to this day, I still don't recall, I can't get the true story how he ended up down in Creek country.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've heard stories that he got adopted by this one family, and but he learned to speak the Creek language fluently, and I grew up basically around the Baptist church down in Calvin. Chilocco Indian Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I grew up, around that, with my cousins and stuff. And that was most of my upbringing there.
Okay. Did you have grandparents on your mom's side?
No. Well, I did. I had one, the only one, and I wasn't close to him. The only one I was close was to my grandpa, but it wasn't really he was really up in age, and we really didn't get to know him. And he was a preacher, and he didn't really associate with us, the younger children at times. We'd sit around at our camp house, and the only thing we did was we'd go tell him when it's time to eat, and he'd come in and stuff like that. But as far as really getting out and getting to know us, he never did. So we never did really get to know him. He like I said, he was just up in age then.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does.
So how did you end up going to school at Shalako?
That was that was kind of weird, because what happened was I didn't make no plans to go to Shalako. I was in my junior year, probably about middle of the first 6 weeks, and I just come home from school on a Friday, and my mother and dad said, "Pack your bags, you're going to Shalako." And what I found out later was my older brother, who was in the service in the Navy, he was having his first child, and he was sending his wife back to live with mom and dad. Mm-hmm. So they had to make room in the house for her and her 2 kids and her new arriving baby, child. And so they had to ship me out to make room for them. Mm-hmm. And that's how I ended up. Somehow they arranged it, which I'm glad they did, you know. There was one sad part about it that I found out years later that really hit me hard, that and my mother didn't tell me this until years later. She said, your younger brother David, he and I were the only ones that were at home. And she said he cried for 3 nights because his older brother was gone. Mm. He didn't have no brothers at home. That really hit me hard. And it really hurt, it kind of scared me too, because I was really glad to go to Shalako. I mean, I loved it there. I wish I could have went 4 years. I really do. I've often thought about it. It was a great experience, and I just regret that I never did get to spend 4 years there. I was happy I got to go 2 years, you know. Mm-hmm. It was fun. Really was. I enjoyed it. Great deal.
Moving out, it's a big change though, moving from a small public school.
Well, it wasn't a public school. I was at Henrietta going to
you're at Henrietta, okay.
Big school. See, when we moved from Calvin, we went to Henrietta when I was in 8th grade. Went there a year. Then we moved up to Adair, north of Pryor, for a year in my 9th grade, which was a really good school. It was a small country school, and I found out there was a difference between the bigger schools and the smaller schools, and the way you were treated, you know. And I'd never seen that before, but I seen it at Henrietta, and that was the really first time I come into that environment where different classes of people are placed, and you were over here off the tracks. And now this was just not only Indians, but it was the lower class of whites too. Mm-hmm. The ones with the more affluent ones, they stuck to themselves, you know.
Now this was in the smaller schools?
No, it wasn't in the smaller schools. It was in the bigger schools. Gotcha. All the smaller schools, boy, they were just, everybody was the same, you know. It very, the ones that were really smart, they were just as, in the smaller school at Adair, they were just as friendly as it get out. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe it. They just treat you nice and everything, just like you was a brother of Pearson's, you know. Mm-hmm. It was a fun time.
But it was that class system in those
bigger
schools.
Correct. Mm-hmm. It was in the boys and girls, you know. They stuck to themselves, you know. They'd occasionally talk to you, but no, not very much. Mm-hmm. They ignore you, you know. It was tough to take, you know. But when I went to Shalako, and it was a total different thing. I mean, everybody just, yeah, you're an Indian, you know, just talk to you and go, you know. I never had any problems there.
Can you remember your first couple days there?
Yeah, I had a cousin, Jerry Walker. He's passed away about 2 months ago. He was up there, and I had my brother's future wife up there. She was a grade ahead of me, out of Jane McCoy. They helped me get around because I happened to know somebody up there, you know. And Jerry, I seen him that Saturday when I got up there, and he asked me, he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I was just told to come up. I'm going to Shalako. I'm here." "Okay. Well, if you need anything, let me know, you know." And it just like, he treated me like a brother, you know. And but he eventually told me later on, he said, I just kind of let you go on your own and find your own group to run around with, you know. He said, I didn't try to say you can run around with us or something, but he was really good about it. And he come back up to me later and he said, "Don't worry about anybody bothering you." He said, "They ain't gonna bother you." And which made me feel good, you know, like I had a big brother watching over me, you know.
Right.
And that made me feel good. And then, because I didn't know any of those people, I just knew them by name from looking in my brother's annual, you know. I didn't know, but they turned out to be some really good people up there. Even some of them, I got to be friends with a student that was ahead of me. I can't remember his name. He was from Nevada, but he had been in a reform school. Like I said, I met this one fellow that was, well, I ran around with two seniors with this one Florida Indian. He and I become real good friends, and then I met his friend who was from Nevada, and he was out of reform school, and he was he was a real friendly guy. I mean, you couldn't ask for. We become friends, you know, and I never did see him get into any kind of trouble or anything like that. You know, he was just one of those guys that really. You treat him right, he treats you right, you know. And that's what I liked about Shalako. You know, there's different Indians from all over the place. We were just Indians, you know, and that was the good part about it.
What building did you stay in?
Home 6.
Okay. And did you work part of the time? Did you have a...
No, I just got to, when I was there, I just, what they assigned you, you know, well, everybody went through it, you know, you got assigned a detail, not every week, every time, you know, you knew it was coming when you was going to end up working the chow. Everybody did that, you know, and that was no, that was just part of it, you know, and I accepted it. And you know, there were some deals that you did the chores around the cleaning and the stuff in the building, you know, that was your detail, you know, like everybody did it. And then, you know, the part about doing your own laundry and ironing and stuff, that came with the territory. That helped me, you know, lean on going my own, you know. And to this day, I still iron my clothes. And it's, I don't mind doing it, you know. That's the way I was. I accepted it. That was a good part. I knew some Indians that were from Henrietta that went up there before I did. They come home when I went up there. I didn't get to see them up there, and when they got back to Henrietta, they complained that, oh, you have to wash your own clothes and iron them and stuff, you know. And they didn't like it up there. They said that Mama and Dad, well, they didn't have a father, but their mom did all that for them, you know. But it didn't bother me. I was really...
Learned some good skills.
Yeah, yeah.
Who were one or two of the outstanding teachers or classes that you had up there?
Ooh, there was a chemistry teacher that he would I didn't know, well, I cannot remember his name, but he had a good sense of humor about teaching that chemistry class because he, you know, we had it right after lunch, and we'd go there and there'd be some of us going to sleep, and he'd mix up that ammonia or whatever it was to make the room smell like a rotten egg and wake us up. I think it was Pauletta, wasn't that chemistry teacher named Owsley?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it, Mr. Owsley. He was, and I remember him most of all. And then I guess you could say probably Coach Moore. There's one thing he did. I was really looking forward to lettering. I had the hours to, the time in to letter. I was looking forward to get my coat. And my mother, during my junior senior year, I worked in Oklahoma City, and I didn't go home to see my mom and dad for. I went back to Shalako, which I should have, and I'd been up there, I don't know, a month, and Mom wrote me a letter. She said, "Well, we sure missed you, boy, that hit me the wrong way, before you went up there to see you, and tears come to my eyes, and I said, shoot, I went AWOL to come home and visit Mom and Dad, A friend of mine came with me, but I came home to see them, and then when I come back, we was electing positions officers for the football team, and I got elected for one. And Coach Moore said Charley Johnson is not eligible to be that because he went AWOL on y'all, and so I got knocked out of all that, the honors that would. He took me out of that, and I always wanted to explain to him, before he passed away, that what had happened that made me forced to go. Mm-hmm. I was going to tell him that I didn't do that really intentionally. I said it was the fact that how my mother had written that letter.
Right.
And I felt like I need to go home and see him,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why the reason I went AWOL that time.
Right.
It was, I was glad to see him, and it meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. That's hard. Was there
and
another kind of disciplinary action they took?
Yeah. The one this was kind of, it's kind of funny the way I think about it now, we had, see, the Navajos and the others, and the other tribes kind of stuck to themselves. And we had a couple of Navajo boys that roomed with us. There's 6 of us right in that room, and we had me and Rusty, there's 3 or 4. No, there's 5 of us in that room, and 2 of them were Navajos, and we had never been around Navajos, and so we got to know them pretty good. And this one, Alfred Attica, had went to town. This was before school, about 3 or 4 weeks before school was out. In my senior year, we were supposed to graduate, and Albert went to town on weekends and got some beer and brought it back that evening. And he come running in there in the room, and he said, "Hey, y'all want beer?" Sure, we'll take it. There's 4 of us there. Me and another senior and my 2 roommates. And, so we was standing there, and we popped the lid open, and we was going to go like that. And here come Miss Kirkland in there. It's funny as all get out. And, we was getting ready to drink our beer, and she walks in and said, "What do y'all got there?" Well, we stuck him behind her back, I think. And she caught us red-handed and took all our beer away. We never did get to drink it. And of course, me and Jerry Barr almost got kicked out of school. Bacon was wanting, who is the boys home 6. He wanted to kick us out of school, But it was, oh gosh, what's his name? That was in charge of the National Guard. what's his name, Pauletta, that National Guard officer? Yeah, D. Gregory. Saved us. He said, no, he said, it's close to graduation. We'll just restrict them the rest of the year and just let them graduate, which was, I'm very thankful he did. But we missed out on a lot of things that the seniors do, like senior day and the prom and like that. Mm-hmm. We couldn't go to none of those, and that meant a lot too, you know, when you're senior. And oh, that hurt whenever they got to go down to senior day, and Jerry and I stayed there, and they gave us hours to work off. Yeah, the senior day, when you were senior, you look forward to that. At least I did. Well, the ones that hung around, I think everybody did, because you went down there and all the seniors, they treated them and had different games and stuff. And it was a very, like I said, I missed mine, and that was something that hurt. And of course, I brought it up on myself, you know, and I had to suck it in, and I'm just glad I got to graduate, you know, and that meant a lot there too. And of course, Jerry did too, you know, because we both went through that. We knew better, but we took the chance, and we come mighty close to getting kicked out. That was the scary part.
I bet. Well, how about like your awareness of the National Guard there, and were you involved with that at all?
No, okay. I had no.
But were you aware of their presence? Or?
Oh yeah. My brother was joined that whenever he was up there, and see, I had no desire really to go into the military. Mm-hmm. If the draft didn't come along, I wasn't going to go in. Mm-hmm. I had all my brothers, my 4 older brothers, went into the military, and there were 4 of us went to Vietnam, you know, and out of 6. And one made a career out of the Navy, you know. He stayed in there over 20 years. But I wasn't going to go in. I determined to find me a job and just stay out and work, you know. Mm-hmm. That was my goal. Well,
let's back it up to when you graduated from Shalako. Did you find what kinds of jobs did you? Well, what was your? I guess what did you kind of focus on too when you were there in terms of studies?
I didn't have a vocation at Chilocco. They stuck me in regular college, pre-college classes, and of course those kids in there were way ahead of me. I just since I was in there, I said I just want to get my credits to graduate, you know, and I'll take whatever is. After that, I'll go into what I want, you know. But I had no desire to go to college because I knew I didn't have the grades to do it. Mm-hmm. But I could go to a trade school, you know, which I eventually did, you know. But I had a summer job that I had worked at between my junior and senior year at Oklahoma City with this oil company that I had made myself known to them during the summer. And they gave me a summer job, and they told me, they said, whenever you graduate, they said, if you need a job, come back. You're welcome to come back. So I think we graduated on probably about a Monday, and Thursday I was back to work.
Wow.
So I had me a job, you know, waiting on me, and I went right back to work. And that gave me a time to really look at and grow on my own, you know, and look at things for in the future that as far as schooling and money-wise, how am I going to pay for my family, you know?
Because you and Paulette had already gotten married?
Me and Paulette was nothing.
Okay.
We weren't. We didn't date at Shalako. We just knew who each other was.
Gotcha.
What happened after left Shalako was I went back to work at that oil company in Oklahoma City, and I got to see how some of the men that were working with me were making $1. Highest I made was $1.30 an hour, and I said, these men are, a few of them are making the same thing I am, and the foreman is making $55, $60, $1.60 an hour, and he's living with his mother. He's not married. And I said, I don't know how those fellas are making it. They got a car, they got home, and they got kids. I said, I'm making $1.30 an hour. I'm by myself, and I know what, after I pay my bills, I just got about $25 left for entertainment to eat on, you know. And I said, and that really sunk in my head more. I said, you got to go find a job that pays, or learn a trade. And I told my mother, I said, about that, go to Omaha again, see if you can't get me on relocation somewhere and to learn the trade. And they sent me to, I tried everywhere. Go out to Denver, LA, Chicago, Dallas, and all of them was full. And they said, well, we got a place in Cleveland, Ohio. I said, I'll go without hesitation. And I was there 1 year up there at Oklahoma City after I graduated. And I went to Cleveland, Ohio and they put me in welding school there. I went to Lincoln Electric, and I found out that there was a lot of Indians there that they sent to that school, you know. And that was the #1 place to go, and it was good. We had, I had some roommates. I was rooming with some Indians that were further ahead of me, and some of them that had graduated from there. And this one, Chippewa Indian from Michigan, he was, gosh, I couldn't believe he was making. He was at a union job, and he was making, my gosh, he was making. I think probably at the time, $12 an hour. Back then, that was a lot of money. Wow. And I said, that's what I want to do, you know. Then you can live on it, you know. And see, whenever I finally got out there, they had to find you a job too, the Indian department up there. So I went through there and got out of that, and me and this one guy's rooming together, this Navajo. He came there after I did. He went out after I graduated, and I was working, and we saw that yellow envelope in the mailbox, and we knew what it was. And the first one, we didn't know whose it was. His. It was from the Selective Service.
Wow.
Come for your. But see, he was a, I think 4F or something like that, where he didn't have to serve, you know. And well, about 2 weeks later, another one showed up, and we knew who that one was for. And I got a notice to come down to the Selective Service Board there in Cleveland and take my physical and everything, which I did. And I'd been working, and they told me, they said, I guess this was in about August. And I asked them, I said, well, how long will it be before I get drafted? They said, probably about 4 or 5 months. Okay. So I worked another 2 months, and I told them, I said, well, I'm going to be drafted. And I was getting paid this was a non-union job, almost $5 an hour. And I was working night shift, and of course I was still wanting to shoot for that union job, you know, but I knew I had to get some experience, so I was just using that as I said, well, I'll work here a year, then try out for those union jobs, you know. But it never happened, and then I got I told him I had to quit because I'm going back home because I'm going to be drafted. And I came back home in early November, and I contacted the reserve board, selective service in Oklahoma, and asked them when I was going to be drafted. They said, you're going to be drafted next month in December.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh.
enlisted for 3 years to get out of being in the infantry. And my goodness, I almost ended up being in it anyway.
Wow. So when you enlisted, where did they send you? For
They sent me to
boot camp?
Fort Polk, Louisiana. And
Had you ever been out that way?
no, I'd never been down to Louisiana that way. So that was after I went into the military, that was an eye opener for me. It helped me again, like Shalako did. It made me, gave me confidence that I could go out into this society and compete with those guys. I said, I can compete with them. You know, I thought I felt like I could go out and earn a job. You know, just give me the chance, and I felt like I could. And you know, there was an incident that happened after I came back from Vietnam. Well, when I got out of basic training at Fort Polk, I got sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, for combat engineer training, and we were supposed to go to jump school. There was probably about 40 or 50 of us supposed to went straight to jump school out there, and there were some of us, and I was in that group that went from there to straight to Vietnam. I didn't go to an engineer company. I went to a quartermaster company, and that's the way the Army is. They'll send you where you need it, you know. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know nothing about the quartermaster company, what was going on. And but anyway, after I served there a year, and then I'd come back, there was an incident that happened when I was in jump school that really made me feel good. That we had a group of Air Force cadets in our jump class with us. There's probably about 20 of them. And I don't know what exactly it was that caused them to do it, but I was only E4 in that class. There were 2 other staff sergeants in that class with us going through there. They had been advisors over in Vietnam, and they was going through it. And we'd finished our train for the day, and we was back at camp, and I forget what we was standing at attention or something, and every one of them come by me and shook my hand. I don't know what it was for, but they all did. And I'm gonna tell you something. That's the first time I've ever been around those cadets, and it made me feel good that we had those kind of men, young men coming up. There's something special. Those Air Force, those cadets, and they got my respect. It really, they were some good, outstanding young men there, leaders. You could see it, you know. They had that confidence, and it made me feel good. When I was in, they put me in charge of that one platoon that I was in, and because I was an E4, you know, and I'd seen it done before, but I'd never really was in charge of one, you know. I was always the follower, but down there they put me in charge. And these 2 staff sergeants that had served in Vietnam, they was going to jump school. They called me off the side one time, back in our barracks, and they said, "Johnson, we want to talk to you." Okay, so I'll go back there, and we're talking, and they said, "Have you ever thought about making the military a career?" I said, no, I said, I'm going to do my 3 years and then go back home. I said, that's what. They said, you ought to think about making it a career. I said, well, tell me why. And I didn't realize it, but they said, you've got the right attitude. They said, we can see it in you. You really do, to be a military person. And I don't know what I showed them, but they saw it in me, you know. And it made me feel good again, you know. And I didn't know these men and nothing like that, you know. But I guess after you've been around, and I have to agree with them, you know, that after you see and been around somebody for a little while, you can see things in them, you know. It stands out. You may not see it in yourself, but they do.
Right.
And and that made me feel good, you know, about when I came out of there. And then I went to the 82nd after jump school, and
82nd Airborne.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was my older brothers. 2 of them had been in that unit, and so for me to go there too, it made me feel good. You know,
Was there another training period then before you went overseas, or?
You mean to Vietnam?
Yeah.
No, that was
it.
That was after I went to Fort Leonard to combat engineer training.
Okay.
And then I went. That's what I was trained as, and I went to Vietnam. I went straight to that quartermaster company.
Okay. Did you get some time to go back home before you shipped overseas?
We got 2 weeks. 2 weeks home. Delay en route, and then we went to Oakland. You know, there's a part there. But that was one thing I did that a lot of other guys didn't do. And I read stories about some men that did do it after they kissed the ground before they left, and when they come back, we was getting on that plane. I reached down and touched this ground. Flew over. Then when I got back, I flew back. I reached down and I touched this ground and said, thank you. I was glad to be back.
Right.
And that really meant something to me.
Now your brother had been over to Vietnam too, but you almost overlapped a year, didn't you?
What do you mean?
I think, was it Thomas who, did you have a brother who also served in Vietnam?
Tom was there.
Okay.
But see, I went there in May. Tom was already over there.
Okay.
He went over there in '65. He come back in August of '66. He got out, but we never did. I think he extended 3 months because they gave him an early out, and he never did. We never did get to see each other or stuff like that.
You didn't get to talk or see?
No, I never did get to talk with him or nothing. There was no way we knew how to get a hold of each other, so we never did see each other. I wish I did, but you know, that's like I was telling Pauletta that in this month's story of the battles in Vietnam, they had a story on that one where we was at finally, where this LZ got overran, and in December of '66 we was out in the field with the 1st Cavalry Division, and they got overran. A lot of soldiers got killed, and we had to help them, take care of them, you know. And there was what they call a grave registration. They're the ones that take care of the killed in action. they were right next to our POL dump. We set up the field dump out in the forward areas, and we handled all the fuel. Well, their area was right next to ours, and they was in the same support group that we were. And when that battle took place and all those wounded and killed started coming in, it started on one day. I remember when it started coming in, and then it just continues all through the night, and then next day. And those fellows that were working there, they started that day taking care of those bodies, and they had what they call reefer trailers, where they freeze the bodies out in the field. Then they'd ship them on plane they'd take them to Saigon where they embalm them and everything. Well, they have to tag them and get their name, dog tags, and they'll put it on a little card, and they put it on the body, tied to the body. And they had been doing that and taking off their equipment, you know. They still had all their equipment on and stuff. Some of them still had their hand grenades on them and stuff. So we had to take all that stuff off of them and put that, tag their names and everything on it, and put it, and there was a clerk there, and we had to tell him who it was and what his name. Well, we didn't get into that until the next day, late evening. It had been going on the previous day all night, and then that next day, and our sergeant come to us. He said, "Fellas," he said, the grave registration guys have been working since yesterday." He said, "Those soldiers, all of them, got killed." He said, "They haven't had a chance to stop, sleep, eat." And he said, there was about 5 of us. He said, "I need some volunteers to go give them a relief." And he said, "I want to warn you first." He said, "If you've never been around this or seen any of this, it's going to shock you." And he said, I'm telling you now. But he said, if you can't stand it, nobody's not going to blame you. They'll understand. And so we said, okay, there was 5 of us said, we'll go over there and help. He said, "I need some volunteers to help give them a break, you know, so they can come over and eat and get some rest." So we go over there, and we're walking around that one reefer barn. That one, as we're standing there, there's these 2 soldiers are putting some bodies in that reefer barn. We was looking at them, and of course, you know, when you're doing that, those guys said, "What are y'all looking at?" Oh boy, I knew, and he had a right to say that, but, and because you know, you're going to look at it, you know. But the guy that was in charge of us, he said, "Well, we were sent over here to relieve you fellas, to help you out and give you all the help, you know." And he said, "Okay." And then he said, "Okay," told us to report to the sergeant over there in that tent, you know. So we go over there, and then as we walk across here, we're walking by those bodies, and oh man, it shocked us. I mean, I threw up, and I started getting sick. And then they said, "You gonna be all right?" And I finally got myself together, and I said, "Yeah, they need help." So I went over, you know, I went in there, and after I threw up and shook it off, you know, I went in there, and there was an Indian guy that was, he was the clerk there. He was doing all the typing and stuff. We was telling him the names of the ones that we was tagging. And he said, oh yeah, we was talking, and I asked him his name. I think he said, I forget what he said, but he looked like he was a Creek or a Cherokee. And I said, "How did you get assigned to this place?" You know, and I don't know. This is one unit I wouldn't want to be assigned to, you know. I said, yeah, but somebody's got to do it. And we didn't talk after that. We just did our job, you know, went out there and took care of those soldiers and stuff. And then I remember we was hauling them up to the, I often think about this and it brings tears to my eyes. Those as we was hauling them up to the airstrip to the plane, you know, we was looking at their the bodies and what their rank was and stuff. And we saw one of them was a staff sergeant, and I said, "Oh man, he's got a wife and kids and stuff, you know." And but I noticed that all of us, it didn't have to be told to us. We did it instinctively. When we took them off the truck, we handled their bodies just like a military. You see them on with total dignity, you know. We carried them into the plane, and as we set them down, we set them down gently, you know, and we just put them in there correctly the way it's supposed to be, and with total respect for them, you know. And that made a lot. I still think about those fellows that we lost over there like that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. When you were over there, did you write home very often?
When I first got there, I didn't. They make you send they fill out a card and you've got to send it home to tell them your address over there. And it took me a little while, about a month and a couple of months before I ever got a letter from home. And it made me angry at my mom that she took so long to write to me. And I forget how I end up, one of the young Seminole girls got my address up at Shalako, and she started writing to me. She was in Pauletta's class, and she started writing to me, which really made me feel good. It was different, you know, as somebody from Shalako. She sent me some pictures of her friends and stuff, and that's what Pauletta did to some of her classmates that went to Shalako. I mean, went over there, you know. And
in support, they would write their fellow classmates.
And I wanted to say this, and that meant a lot. It really did to hear from them, you know. And I'm glad that Pauletta and all the other young girls wrote to us over there. That sure helped out. It really did to hear from. I think she's we've visited her a few times. I've seen her down in Florida, Switzerland, and we asked her about her a lot of times. And when she's at reunion, I told her, I said, I never did thank you for writing to me, but I want to thank you for doing that. It meant a lot, you know. And that friend of mine, that was his name was Russell Osceola. Well, Pauletta's classmate wrote to him, and we went. First time we went to Florida, he went with us, and she was with us, and he said, "I'm going to marry that girl when I get back to." But he never did. She married somebody else. But he, you know, it meant a lot to us, you know, that they wrote to us. They sure did. I was glad they did that. I always wanted to tell everybody that you know, these Shalako girls that wrote to the soldiers over there, that meant a lot. It really did. It touched us a lot. You're the first one I'm ever telling that. I never told anybody that. I never told her that either. But it did. It really meant a lot to us. I'm glad they did it.
Yeah, what a wonderful, to have a little bit of connection with home.
Mm-hmm. They helped us get through it too. Yeah, they don't. Maybe they don't really realize it, but they did. They sure did.
How about, did you happen to see any of the shows that came through, or did
No.
you?
Gosh, that was that time I was telling you, I was out in the field there. Whenever we was taking that, I was with that unit that where we took care of the soldiers that had gotten killed.
Right.
All of them. There was I come down. We had here's our base like this, and we had outside that perimeter there. We had another area right here, and this did the laundry and the showers where the infantry come in, and we'd have to go guard that sometimes. And one time I was down there and pulling the group of men with me that we had to go down there and pull guard duty one night, and we was in there taking our shower, and they brought these infantry guys through there, and as I was taking my shower, this one guy said, "Hello, Charlie," and I looked up, and it was one of the fellows that I went through Fort Leonard with that combat engineer training with. He was in my platoon. He got sent to 1st Cavalry Division. I said, "Oh, we laughed and we talked, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm with the infantry." He was telling me, he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm with this quartermaster company here, right here. We've got all that fuel out there." And I said, "That's what we do." And he said, "Man," he said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "There ain't nothing but tunnels all over these mountains." He said, "You wouldn't believe the tunnels that are up there." And that's the last time I seen all that. But I found out, and I was telling Robert Riggs this. We got to see him then. He's Adrian Riggs' brother, and Jake Larney. After we got out, we was talking about it. They were in that. They had been in and out of that place where I was at, and I was in total shock. And see, Jake was on a helicopter in there, and see, they brought those infantry guys out the field there, and they'd let them stay out there they'd bring them in for a few days for rest, get a shower and new uniforms. Well, Robert was one of them, and he was in my class. Both of them were, I said, "You know what? I wish I could have got to see you fellas then. It would have been great, I mean, we were just probably from here to, I don't know, 100 yards away and didn't know it,
Right.
That was, that really, after we talked about it, and I said, "Oh gosh, you mean you were that close there?" I said, "Yeah, I was there tell you, we tore down that base, Oh, he told me how many times they'd been in and out of there. I said, "Oh, that was the sad part, we never did get to see each other like that."
Right.
But there were some of them that did get to see other Shalakos up there. And it was good, they talked about it. My brother, Tom, he saw a couple of them over there.
Oh.
But I never did.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with the airborne?
Yeah, that was when I left, we got out of jump school, and when they put us on a bus to go to Fort Bragg, I was on that bus, and there was a couple of guys. There was probably about 10 or 12 of us on that bus, and there was a couple of them getting a little noisy and rowdy back there, and I didn't say anything. Then that bus driver approached me. He said, "These guys are getting rowdy." He said, "You're the highest ranking one. You need to calm them down." I didn't want to do that. Just let them talk, And I didn't want to use my rank like that. So since he asked me to do it, so I had to stand up and tell him to calm down. And I said, and these were big, some of them were bigger men than young men than me, you know. And I said, well, if you don't do that, I said, I'm going to have to say something whenever we get there, and then they'll let them handle it. I said, either you do it what I was saying, telling you, asking you to do, or suffer the consequences when we get to Fort Bragg, you know. They all shut up and sat down. Never said anything, you know. So we had a calm trip after that, which made me feel good, you know. I thought, like I said,
That worked good.
yeah, that worked good. You know, that driver, he didn't like it either. They did get a little rowdy, you know, but they were celebrating too that they got out of school, jump school, and all that and stuff. But I didn't, like I said, I was just letting them go. You know, I'm not that type to do all that celebrating like that. You know.
Well, do you recall when your service ended?
Oh yeah. I was coming back. My last 8 months of I was in Germany. I got sent to Germany my last day, which was a good tour. I liked Germany.
Yeah, that's totally different. When you get off base, totally different culture. Huh?
Yeah, it's totally. And we got to go to the. Well, there's another episode to that. We was in a small. It was more strict army over there. You had to. We was with a helicopter unit in Stuttgart. Our main headquarters was at Stuttgart, and we was at Ansbach, just about 20 miles north of Nuremberg. And we was in a helicopter unit, and we was attached to a tank battalion in that base. It was an old German barracks, you know. That's where we were, and we had the teams, the units that were on alert. I say alert, that had to be ready all the time. Was one of those tank units in the helicopter. There were certain units that had to be ready all the time, and that tank battalion had to. And when they'd pull alert once a month, they had to run out, get their tanks, and we had to run out and get our helicopters and line up, and they'd send us outside of town somewhere, you know. We'd stay out there for a day, then we'd come back in, you know. And we did that once a month, and they'd do it any time during the day or night, and mostly it's done at night. And like I said, there must have been about 50 to 60 tanks in that battalion, and boy, they'd have to run and go down the street, those narrow streets, you know. That it was an awesome sight.
Oh yeah.
And so we was part of them, but on weekends it was just like they'd let us go out. You had to be an E5 to stay out late, but they'd let us stay out E4s and below till about 1 o'clock at night, and then we'd go over to the local bar, and it was different over there. And you'd go out to eat and stuff, pizzas down in the village there. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was something learning experience, you know. And I learned to eat sauerkraut and wieners. That's good. That's
Different kind than we have.
I look forward to that Oktoberfest. Oh, yeah. I can go to that. Eat that sauerkraut. Yeah, I know what it's all about there. I learned to drink wine over there too. They got some good wine over there. The beer was good. You know, I didn't get carried away. I'm not too much of a alcohol drinker. I never was. I enjoy a little sip every now and then. I drink a beer, you know. But I'm not the type that if everybody's drinking a beer, it's, yeah, you want one? Well, I can turn it down. It doesn't mean that much. That don't impress me to show anybody that I have to have a beer to, you know, be somebody. It doesn't mean nothing to me like that. And I drink for strictly enjoyment of taste, you know. That's the way I am. Like I said, I got 2 beers in there now, and gosh, it'd probably take me 3 weeks to drink that 2 beers. But I enjoy a good beer every now and then, or wine. I still got some wine up there I drink, you know. But I learned it over there. It was something. And after I got out there, you know, I was going home, and there's one thing that happened over there. Well, and it was, and I always wondered why it happened. And I spoke of in high school how I seen how the different classes. Well, over in Germany, well, I witnessed some of it over in Vietnam, but not on the. I just seen where we had a lot of Puerto Ricans, and how they kind of stuck together, and really, in a way, there was 3 other Indians in my platoon. There was an Apache Indian, and there was a Cherokee, and then there was a I think he may have been a Chippewa. He was from Minnesota. His name Mose. And Mose and Leaf, they kind of guided me around when I was took care of me when I was in Vietnam. But that Apache guy over there, he never would talk to us. He never associated with the other 3. I don't know. It was hard for us to communicate with him. As a matter of fact, I never talked. I never did. I'd walk by him and stuff. He never would say hi or hello. Nothing. Never would. And I never did. I couldn't recall seeing Leaf and Mose talk to him. They may have, but they'd been there longer than I had. But when I got to Germany, there was this young white young man from South Carolina, very religious, very intelligent. And when I got to the barracks there, I roomed with him. And there was just there were some rooms that just were 2 could room, then 3, then 4 in those old barracks. And so I was in his room with him, and I found out later as I watched him, you know, like I said, you look at people, you can start telling. I found out later he was very prejudiced. I mean, I had never seen anybody that prejudiced. Over in Europe, you could buy rifles and handguns that you could buy here in the United States, but you could buy them cheaper over there. The only thing is, you could not buy the ammunition. You had to have them registered and everything. And he had a rifle, and we was up there, and then he'd be standing at his window, and he'd act like he'd point that rifle down at somebody, and he said, he'd click it and say, "Pow! I shot that nigger. Pow! I shot that nigger. Pow! I shot that." And that really just hit me wrong. I couldn't believe I'm seeing this, and that stayed with me. And I said, here he is. On Sunday morning, you see him carrying his Bible, going to church, their services. And that just, I couldn't understand it, you know, how that he could have so much hate for another people, you know. And then, it wasn't too long after that, I had this white guy from He was from Michigan. And this black guy from Alabama approached me. And they said, Charlie, we want you to come room with us. And I questioned, well, why? They said, well, we think you're a good, we've been keeping an eye on you. You take care of your place and stuff. You know how to, and that's what they was looking for. So we've been looking for a roommate, and we got a vacancy up there. Okay, so I went up there, and here I am, and I often think about this. Here I've got this white that's all this prejudice, and I've got this white and black young man over here that are just as opposite of what this guy is. These two guys like each other. I can't believe it. I mean, they got along. That's the way we should do, And I get in there with them, and we all three got along, And one time, that one guy, he was sort of like that one guy, it's sort of like okay, I guess you call him to me, he was like a dork. He is one that, he is always by himself. He'd get his bicycle, and he'd go ride it off somewhere out of town, somewhere. He'd tell us where he went. But he was a good guy. We enjoyed it, And then Samuel Ball was his name. He was over me and my unit, there at Ansbach, and they told me, they said, Charlie, you, Sergeant older than me, he told me, he said, Charlie, you're older than, you got more rank than Ball. You should be doing this. I said, well, Ball was doing this all the time. He knows what's going on. I'm comfortable with him being in charge. I'm not going to pull a rank on him, and let him go, And so the guy said, okay, but you can have it. And I said, I don't want it. I said, I'll just serve on the Ball because he knows what's going on. And so, he and I got along real fine. I often think about it. There was one thing that happened, and this is something that I noticed that I do, that as I've gotten older, I notice things that happen in my life that tell me this is going to happen later on, or something that's going on earlier in your life, you're going to see it again or something like that, that thing is going to mean something to you. When I left, I got ready to get out. Like I said, me and Sam Ball, black guys, we became good friends. He took me down to the train station in Ansbach to catch the train. And those trains over there, as soon as you get on, and we come to find out, they leave on time. You get on, I got on, and I put my bag in there, and I come back to shake his hand and thank him for it, When I went to that door was shut, and we was already moving down the track. I didn't get to say goodbye to him. And I can see him there, standing there. I was wanting to say goodbye to the man. I really missed saying that. It really bothered me. And I did that. That happened to me whenever we was at Adair. I made friends with this one guy that was a neighbor of ours. He and I ran around. And when we moved from Adair back to Henrietta, we moved, and then Mom and Dad left me and my younger brother down there. They went back to Adair to get the rest of the furniture. I didn't get to go back and say bye.
Yeah.
And that happens. That's happened to about 4 different times. That something like that's happened to me. And I feel that when I leave, it's going to be like that. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to be able to say goodbye. It's telling me that that's the way I'm going to go. I've come to accept that, you know. That. So I try to make every time I see my family, you know, it's a special time.
Yeah, I was going to say it really makes you focus on the present.
Yeah, it makes you. It really does. Because I think that's, like I said, I think there's in our lives we go through things, and you go through different things that tell you that these things, certain things are going to happen to you, you know, or that thing's going to mean something to you. And later on down the road, I'll be darned. And it's like I was telling Pauletta, you know, she and I discussed this, you know, that I said whenever I was young, I said my older sister got married and lived in Shawnee. I said we used to come up here, and me and my brother used to go down Shawnee and go to movies and stuff, and we were telling her about the old theaters. And yeah, we used to be on the east side of town, you know, we'd come down every Saturday. I said, we probably seen you and didn't know it, Joe.
Cross paths, didn't see each other.
Yeah, you know, stuff. But, you know, I said, I like that town. You just have I guess there was a special something about it, you know. I said, then after you think it over years, that it's telling you there's something there that's going to bring you back to it. And then her mother said something to her. They used to go to Henrietta when she was young to get coal. She said, yeah, I like this town. There's something probably going to be there that's going to draw you to that town. Well, I lived in that town, you know, so see those weird things like that. It's there telling you, but you're going to have to interpret it in a way, your own way. That's what it's telling you down the road. It's going to happen, you know. At least I believe that. I think it's true, you know. Yeah.
Well, after you got out of the service, did you get to work in welding?
Yeah, but my brother, I went to work over Trinity Industries when I got out of service, probably about a week after I got out of service, and I stayed with him. He let me stay with him for a month to save up some money, buy me a car. And I worked at nights, and he was very, I have a good brother. He took care of me. He'd come get me, in the mornings, you know. He'd wake up, and I didn't have no ride or nothing. Well, he'd come get me at lunchtime in the evening. He went to work, he worked day shift. And I'd drive, he just lived about a mile from the work. We got 30 minutes at 8:30 to eat. And so I'd drive his car, and I'd take it back to work, and then drive it back home, and he'd drive it. He'd get his car back in the morning. And I was very thankful that I had a brother like that would work with me. He's very good.
Because it's a hard transition coming back.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was more so when I came back from Vietnam. I was telling when I got 30 days off, and I didn't realize what I was going through. But it took me a full 30 days to settle down. And finally I went back to the Army base, and I got to be around other soldiers, you know, and I felt more he's adjusted then with the ones, you know. But I was telling Jake Larney about this one. We was talking about one of the soldiers that had gotten killed that went back to Vietnam, and he told me, he said, I had to go back. He said, I couldn't adjust. And that's when I was sort of angry at this one soldier that went back, that went to Shalako, and he got killed over there. And I was questioning myself, why did you go back? Because you had made it home, you know. And finally Jake explained it to me. He said I couldn't adjust. He said I had to go back. And he said once I got back, he said I felt more relieved, you know. And then that's when I really realized how, when I came home, I was on. See, when you're over there, all your senses come to life. To me, I guess that's the best way I can explain it. They're on high alert. I mean, you know, you hear the expression, you can hear a pin drop. I could, out there, over there, that's literally true. Your senses are so strong, you're more mentally alert. And it's just not, you may seem like you're having fun doing something, but you've got that, it's still on, you know. You never let it go to rest. You may think you may be over there drinking a beer, having fun with your time, but that thing is still on. That little antenna is still going on up there. It's still on. It'll set you off. I didn't realize it was like that with me until I come home. And I remember first night, for first week, for sure, I was at home. I couldn't go to bed at night. I'd try to go to bed. I'd stay up at night walking around. I'd be outside, sitting outside and out on the porch, just looking out. And sometimes I'd sit I said, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I said, here these people don't have any idea what went on over there, going on over there. Thank God they don't. But it's just a different world, you know. It really is. You come from that, then you come back to the States. It's totally different. It takes you a while to unwind, and you just have to. And I was able to adjust a lot sooner than he did, because he was in a more stressful environment than me, you know, and Robert too, those guys that served in the infantry, it took them a lot longer, you know. Some of them had to go back, some of them did. Some of them went back 2 or 3 tours. I didn't want to go back. I mean, I'll make it home, I'm going home, I'm staying home. One time is enough for me. And do I regret it? No. In a way, yes and no. From the political standpoint of it, I feel like that war should have never been fought. From the other side, I feel like, we thought we was going for the right thing, and I was doing the right thing, you know, about going, you know, without complaining. And if it's the right thing, Wayne, I feel like I would have gone, you know. I mean, no problem.
How is being involved with veterans today, why is that important to you?
Ooh, you know, when you ask that, let me go back to when you asked me about when I got out of service. That deal about when I got back from Vietnam, I was angry. I didn't really realize it until I got out of service. Whenever I got my discharge at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and I was wearing that uniform, for some reason I just didn't feel right. I took it off and I didn't want to put it back on for a long time. I still don't. Sometimes it's hard for me to put on. And that's why sometimes we was at a powwow up around Wyandotte, and this was having a arts and crafts show, and this young woman that from Duck Creek was with us, and she said they're having a veterans they need dancers up there. You need to go up there. And I didn't say anything. And sometimes I want to tell that story, and this is there's times I don't want to do that. And I have to really dig down hard to make myself do it. Now, we just come from a parade at the Veterans Deal up at Arkalala. I was ready for that. And I have to get myself ready for things that veterans do. That's me, what I went through. And like I said, it's when I came back, my good friend that I made friends with in Vietnam, he come by and visited me after he got back from Vietnam, and he wrote to me, and he said he lived in West Virginia, and he was about 6 years older than me. And matter of fact, when we was out there in Vietnam, out in the field together, he let me. I wasn't getting any mail except my mother, and sometime before the Shalako girl started writing to me, he had his wife write to me. So I wrote back to her, told her what a fine man he was. I said, I think you got it. I want to tell you right now, Bill's a really good man. I said, you got a good one. And so they come by and they visited us, and they gave us she made a couple of pillows and sheets and stuff for us, and we still got them. I lost his, I never did get to communicate with him again, but he did something. He and I went for a walk by ourselves, and we was talking, and Bill said something to me that I knew was there, but to have someone just literally tell me. He said, he looked at me, he said, Charlie, he said, you got a lot of anger in you. He said, you're going to have to cope with it. I mean, he said, you're going to have to get rid of it and stuff. And that really surprised me. He could see it in me, just by us walking together like that, And that really hit me. And whenever I went up for my to the what do you call it, for the disability.
Oh, yeah.
Or I guess we call it the psychologist or whatever they.
Right.
She asked me about that. She said, I told her about this, and she said, well, how do you cope with it? And I said, well, I just do a lot of praying for him to help me get through it. I'm not the type that I've still got a lot of religious in me. I just I don't go to church like that, but I still believe in him, and I still pray to him. I pray for my family, but it's not maybe sometimes like a lot of other people do, but I do. I pray for my wife, pray for her brother when he is having a hard time. I don't tell anybody about it. I just keep it to myself. But Bill told me that. He said, you got a lot of anger in you. And I know where he was coming. I'm glad he told me that. Because like I said, he and I were good friends over there. We made good friends, and for him to tell me that was a friend telling a friend, you know, and to help you out. And that meant a lot to him, tell me that. And I've had to, like I said, I seen that, what I saw with that young man in Germany being that way. And then my roommate was a black and white. That was just the opposite of what he, wow, what am I going through, you know? And I guess he's telling, I interpret it like, I guess the good Lord's telling me we can live together in black and white, and all three of us together.
Right.
There was the Indian, black and white there. Don't judge us by our skin color. Judge us by what's in there.
Right.
And gosh, that meant a lot. Like I said, I often think about that. Why did he show me that? You know, and it's like when I go back, things happen to you, and I guess he's telling you what you're going to see down the road. And this is how you cope with it, you know. It was a very good experience being there, and I met some good people, and I seen some bad ones, but mostly I seen some good ones over there, you know. I still remember it real well, and I'm thankful for that. I made it through it, came home, and when I was in the terminal at Oakland, getting ready to it was really a sad deal when we went into that terminal. They had it was a huge building, had nothing but bunk beds in there, and they gave you a number, and they said, don't forget your number, always pay attention to what. And they told us, they said, you're going to be here an average of, I think, about 4 to 6 hours. Pay attention when we announce your number. You are to come to a certain place where you're going to be shipped out. Flew out of there, you know, to Vietnam. So you had to be, or you couldn't leave the area, you know. And there must have been, seemed like there must have been about 500 of us in that building. And a lot of guys just talking, joking and stuff, and everything going on, you know. And the thing that went through my mind was, as I looked out through there, I said, how many of us are not coming back, you know? I said, that's eerie. I said, I could be one of them, you know.
Right.
It does enter your mind, you know, say, gosh, we don't know what was it. That's like when I was at Fort, I was in charge of that group of men at Fort Benning, and those paratroopers, and we had the weekend off, and a lot of them were infantry guys going through jump school, and they was putting on their decorations and stuff, you know, their infantry robes and that like that. They said, hey, some of their family members were off base. They was going to go see them and stuff, and as they was doing that, there must have been about 4 or 5 of them that were doing that. They wanted to show off their stuff, you know. And I said, well, and really they wasn't supposed to do it, but I let them do it. But they were, what had happened was they were going to see their family members, and they they was putting on their decoration. I said, you're not allowed to wear that. You're not supposed to wear that until you earn that right. And I said, then after they said, oh yeah, we're just going to do it. And then it hit me. I said, well, these fellows are going over there and they may not make it back. Just let them go. And I said, you guys go on. I said, just go on, you know. I said it like that. I said, just go on, go see your family members. And I said, y'all don't realize what y'all are getting into. You know, it's like, it was sort of like to me, it was sort of like a gang of, guys really brave. They're ready to go, you know. But boy, they're just going to be hit with reality when they got there. It's a whole different world. I mean, when I got to Vietnam, we landed at Ton Son Air Base in Saigon. And as we was going down that land it was going by, that airstrip had gotten mortared a few days before that. They still had bombed airplanes and stuff along the sides there. And we was all looking out like that.
That was your
in shock.
First view.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was total shock. Then that's when reality hit us, you know, that, wow. You know, we seen it on TV and stuff. But then when you get there and you're really there, then you start to get nervous.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with us before we?
Well, what Shalako did for me was really give me that extra strength to go out into this world, and I'm really to make it, you know, to support my family, and to grow up, you know, and really lean on myself. And like I said, the military helped me realize that I could make it, you know. When I was up for promotion at Fort Bragg, there were 3 of us that weren't going to make it that 1 month. But if we didn't make it that month, we was going to be up for sergeant the next month. We'd be the first 3, you know. So when I went up for that board, the major, he asked me, he said, Johnson, what do you plan to do when you get out? And I said, well, I'm planning to go back to Spartan's Aeronautics School. I said, I want to be work on be a jet mechanic, something like that out there. And I did go out there for 3 months, but I finally realized that I didn't have the math to go with it, you know. And I took private lessons, flying lessons, where I soloed, and I paid for that out of my own pocket. I proved that I could fly a plane.
That's good.
And I told my daughter, she said, you did that? I said, yeah. I said, I flew into Tulsa International and Riverside and all that. I flew to, yeah, that was my cross country. But I enjoyed that. I proved to myself I could do it, you know. And I proved that, you know, us Indians, we could do something, you know. I looked at, when I went to work for the railroad, I was asked, I was the silent type. There was so much to learn when I first went in. And these older heads, they judge you a lot. I mean, we had, and they were prejudiced too. And we had some older Indian men working there. And they, I guess they were the same like me. They didn't talk very much. Well, they did, but there's one of them that didn't. And He was a conductor, and I didn't really belch out, and I wasn't the vocal type. I like to sit and listen and look and learn. You know, you can learn that way, and that's what I did. And we was going down to Stigler one time. This one older conductor, he looked at me and he said, "Johnson, you need to get you another job." And I said to myself, I said, he bluntly said it to me, you know. And I didn't say anything, you know. I knew I wasn't gonna. I said, "This man is saying this to me." And I said, "He doesn't know anything about me." Mm-hmm. I said, "He doesn't know my inner strengths or what's going on in my mind. And he's just judging me about what I'm having. I'm struggling to learn what's going on out here, and there is a lot to learn." Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you're familiar with the railroad, but it's like they use hand signals for walkie-talkies come along. Mm. It's like, let me give you an example. If we were switching in the yard, there were railroad tracks going down through there, and the conductor looks at me and he could tell me by hand signals what he wants me to do. Mm. He'd have the different tracks, and he would give you to us like this, signs, different hidden. And what he told me, all the things he told me to do was, he said, "We're going to track just by those hand signals." He said, "We're going to drag number 4, kick 2 cars to the main, and then we're going to drag number 3 track and put it to the main." By all those hand signals he gave me. See, and then I had to learn all that. And some of those men weren't very good at it. See, let me give you an example. This is the sign for main track.
I'm losing you, Charlie.
Huh?
You've got to sit in the chair.
Okay.
We'll lose
this is the sign
picture
on the railroad for main track. Mm-hmm. And what he'd do, he'd go like this. He'd say, "I'm going to drag the main track. I'm going to shove 4 track. Leave 3 cars behind. We'll come back out." That's what he told me. Just by
sign language, native sign language.
Just by hand signals. That's what we had to learn. And then at night, you had a little lantern. You had to learn what they were doing. Let's see. When they'd count off, he said, "Well, we'd be shoving or kicking cars in different tracks. If you were to film that, you're looking at the conductor up here." Or he'd go. And what he's telling you is line number 7 track. I forget what the signal was for kick. He's going to kick 3 cars into 7. Then he'd tell you, he'd go like this. He'd say, "Reline that switch."
I understand there's a recall.
This is lantern signals now at night. Reline that signal. Then he'd tell you, and then I forget what the signal for remain like that. Then go like that. And then whenever, let's see, when they want to stop, he'd just go like this once it stopped. So you had to learn all that stuff. Yeah. See, and this man's telling me, I ain't been there long enough to really get it synced down, you know. And it takes you about 6 months to really get it down, 6 months to a year to get it positive, you know. And it's something. I used to use those hand signals when I was, and see, they learn how to tell you how to count. Let's see if I can, let's see. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know that's 6. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Well, that's a great recall.
That's hard. But I'll tell you something, there's one number I remember really good. I'll never forget it. And that's when I went into the service. They give you your service number and they tell you, don't you ever forget this number. You got to memorize it and always remember it. That's your military number. My number is RA 18748-481.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on, and I
Okay.
thank you for your service, Charlie.
Well,
Thank you for your stories today.